Hey guys, welcome back to Complex Combo with your girl Sonia B. That's me. I decided that I was going to jump on here earlier this week to talk to you about something that was inspired by yesterday's Sunday school lesson. So without going deep into the lesson, the core concept was owning up to your own shit. Well, we didn't use that word in the lesson, but you know what I mean. Taking responsibility and holding yourself accountable for the things that have happened in your life and decisions that you have made and the consequences that soon follow. So I thought I'd get on here and be as transparent as I could possibly be, because I really believe, when people meet you individually, they have no idea what you've been through. They have no idea what decisions you have made and the consequences of those decisions. Most often, they just know you where you are today. So I'm going to tell you a few stories about where I am today and how I got here by sharing with you lessons that I've learned from being fired from a job. Not one job, 3 jobs, no less. And each gave me a valuable lesson. Now, mind you, I didn't think about these lessons until yesterday when we had our Sunday school lesson. I lost my first job probably in my early 20s. I worked at a very well-known credit union. I was a military wife, so I'll just say that. And I decided in my early 20s that I wanted to make, working in the banking industry a career. So I started as a teller. I worked my way into member services, started working with loans and mortgage mortgage signings, and I just lost my train of thought. But in either case, I worked my way up in my early 20s, so I thought I was doing pretty good. Credit was great, but I was young and I was married. And being a young married person, I often acted out of instinct or off of my emotions. And I know you men think that women are emotional creatures, and we are, I admit that. So I made a stupid mistake. Without going too much into detail, you'll just know that having the access that I did, had an argument with my husband, decided I'm going to take my name off of our account, which we could do. You could easily remove your name off of an account, but in order to get back on it, you had to go through someone else. But I caught myself. I took myself off of the account. I decided, well, it was a mistake. I was acting out of emotion, so I'm going to put myself back on. Not going to say anything. And there are checks and balances, in place, so you always know who did what and when and why and if it was authorized. Well, again, being in my 20s, I did not go through the proper channels, but I told on myself because I have a tendency to tell the truth to my own detriment, even to this day. But it just didn't sit well with me. I needed to let someone know what I did. And it didn't help that my manager and I really had a tumultuous relationship. So in either case, I ended up getting fired. And for a good part of a month, I was angry at her for firing me. I felt like she wanted to fire me anyway, not at that time taking responsibility for the part that I played in my termination. So every time I would see her, I just flip her the bird. It gave me no pleasure after a few weeks. So, lesson I learned in that firing is, often in life things happen that we have no control over, and we cannot act out of emotion because that will cost us. In that case, it just cost me a job. I was working 2 jobs, so I had something to fall back on. But imagine if I didn't. What if I had several mouths to feed and my salary was something my entire family depended on? I didn't think about that at the time because I had no children, but acting out of emotion, I lost my job. But I have since learned that things and people and situations are going to make me angry, and they often do in the workplace. But I am responsible for how I react. Some of the things that I say, they probably don't even know, unless I know them personally and we've talked offline. But other than that, I don't let my emotions impact my ability to earn money. Lesson learned there. My second firing happened probably in midstream of being pregnant with twins. I've been working in the banking industry still, but I had been sought after for a promotion by a manager that I thought liked me for whatever reason. We clicked. I would do small favors for her department. She had an opening. She hired me. It was pretty easy. But I was working in a mortgage servicing division, so it required me to be very thorough. I was held accountable for any mistakes I made because this would be to the customer's detriment when refinancing their home or purchasing. The training that I got was subpar at best, but being young, I was 24 at the time, and highly emotional because I was pregnant with twins. I was planning on going on vacation. My vacation got approved, but when I came back from vacation, I got pulled to the side or pulled to a conference room. And in this conference room, I saw an envelope or a folder about this thick, filled with paper. And I'm wondering, well, what is this about? Well, I got pulled to the side because in the few months that I had started working in this position, someone who was over me as a supervisor, so kind of in between me and the manager, had been keeping track of any and all mistakes that I could have possibly made in the processing of my loan applications before it going to an underwriter. No one ever pulled me to the side and said, Sonia, you might want to watch A, you might want to check B, go to your training manual to make sure that you're dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's. Instead, this folder was maintained and presented to me after my vacation. So I was written up, and I was written up with a warning that if you make any more than 5, it was some low amount, I was 5 or 10 mistakes at the most, I would lose my job. So I decided that I didn't like the way that, the documentation had been gathered over this course of time, and I was never told about it. So I decided I would try to transfer out of the department. I then wanted to go into HR because I'd had some bad experiences. And I figured if I work in HR, learn the laws, this will be my new career change, right? Now at 24, 25. The caveat was I could not transfer jobs if I had been written up. So I had that in my record and I had to stick it out. In either case, I got fired from that job because more mistakes were found. Training was not provided. I came up with all these things and I took it, like a hit to the chin. I didn't get mad. I didn't, discard, the place. I didn't, cause a scene. I just called, my husband at the time, can you pick me up? I just lost my job. I'll be outside waiting. But I was angry. I was really angry because I felt like I had been done wrong. But in that firing, of course, now at almost 50, I realized that people don't always have your best intentions in mind. People who are placed above you oftentimes don't care about your livelihood or care about the impact of you losing your job. They just don't like you for whatever reason. And I later found out that my lead, who was responsible for watching the mistakes that I made, that actually did a QA check before handing any files over to the underwriter, had lied and said that she had spoken to me, but I continued to make mistakes. But she did me a favor because clearly banking was not what I was supposed to do. And I heard something funny recently that, you often find what you're supposed to do by finding what you aren't good at. So clearly I sucked in the banking industry. My last and final time, knock on wood, that I lost a job was in my late 30s. My family was set. I was married at the time, but my husband wasn't working. I was the sole provider. I decided to take a job that paid less than any other job that I had, but it was a job nonetheless. I was starting my career in IT, and I was given a corporate credit card. which was only supposed to be for travel related to the job and all expenses incurred throughout that travel. But I decided, I don't have the money necessarily to feed my family. I'm using a lot of my salary just to travel to work. My commute was well over an hour. And I would use it to buy groceries. I would use it to, buy food. I would use it to pay a bill, always with the thought that I would just pay it back. As long as I paid it back before it went to accounting, I'd be fine. Well, that spending got out of hand, and I had to tell on myself. So I went to our accounting rep and I said, look, here's the situation. I found myself in a financial bind. I used my corporate credit card, although I knew it was against the policies to do so. What can I do to make it right? Well, you have to pay the balance off at once. I didn't have the money to do that because I was really working as a single mom, although I was married. But that's a story for another day. The valuable lesson I learned in that was, sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we really can't financially dig ourselves out of. So we do things out of desperation, and that was a desperate act. But being a single mom, raising sons that incurred some expenses because they were all in high school at that time, I did what I thought I had to do. And I felt really bad. I even told my husband at the time, I think I'm gonna lose my job over this. But it didn't matter to him because there was food on the table, I was going to work, he was sitting pretty. If I had to do it all over again, would I do the same thing? Probably not. But as a mom, we often do what we need to do. But I did learn, from those 3 firings that I'm able to sit here and share these stories with you today. Not proud of the moments where I put myself in these situations to lose my job. But I am proud of the fact that I don't stand in these stories. These stories don't represent who I am today. I'm actually standing on these stories to tell you and anybody else out there that if you're embarrassed about ever losing a job, whether it be of a fault of your own or, something that happened on the job led to those consequences, or you were simply laid off, don't be embarrassed of those moments. We often lose those very things that we hold on near and dear because we depend on them for our livelihood. But if you think about it in hindsight, there's a lesson to be learned. You were in a place that served you temporarily, okay? You weren't intended to be there forever. And look at where you are today. Those of you watching this video, if you think about where you've been, where you came from, situations you come out of, are you better for it today? What's the lesson that you learned? Because for me, my greatest lesson is that I learned that those very things that I failed at were things that I weren't supposed to be doing today. Are you working in your purpose? Are you learning from your mistakes? If you aren't learning from your mistakes, then darn it, you are bound to repeat them. So my advice to you, it's the only advice I can really give, is evaluate those mistakes that you made. Did you learn from them? If you did, great. If you did not, you got some more reevaluating to do. Just my little insight, inspired by yesterday's Sunday school lesson. I'm holding myself accountable because in each of those situations, I could have prevented it. But hey, I'm better for it today, and I'm no longer under poor management. I would love to hear your stories. If you have something to share, click like, click share, subscribe to my channel, comment below. Were you inspired by my stories? Do I look like what I've been through? Because I sure don't feel like it. Until next time, it's your girl.